Welcome to the American VetFarm Network Podcast, a program of Addie's Orchard. The VetFarm Network supports veterans currently serving members of our military and military families who are exploring farming or getting a beginning farm business started. We offer free of charge farm coaching, technical assistance, and access to the newly launched VetFarm Network app, where veterans can post questions, connect with other farmers, and get support from farms and agricultural partners in their area. Today, we're joined by Leanne Babcock, Executive Director of Dauntless Veteran Foundation. Dauntless describes its mission as helping veterans translate their talent from field to farm. Today, we're going to talk about that work, why ag can be a meaningful path after service, and the Dauntless Agriculture Grant. Funding is one of the biggest questions we hear from our veteran farmers, so we're going to spend some time talking about what their grant supports, who it's designed for, and if you're interested in applying, how you should prepare. Leanne, thanks so much for being here today, and tell us a little bit about your military service and your job at Dauntless.
No, absolutely. I'm 23 years and counting in uniform. I spent the first 5 years of my career enlisted in the Oregon and California Air National Guard as a vehicle mechanic working on fire trucks, refuelers. I was also a college student and I was completing the Reserve Officer Training Corps program at San Diego State. So, little known program called Simultaneous Member. It allowed me to stay enlisted while I was in officer training. I chose an active commission in 2008 and went off to serve for 4.5 years on active duty, transitioned to the reserve, spent 12 great years in the reserve. And finally, I was able to make my way back home to Oregon in the Air National Guard in 2025, where I'm currently serving, but now I'm mobilized and I'm at the Air National Guard Readiness Center until the end of the fiscal year, right up until harvest, which seems to be a trend in the last 6 years. We're in busy times in the lives of those of us that are citizen airmen, citizen soldiers, and then all of our reserve component personnel. So,
And so, where is Dauntless Veteran Foundation based out of?
the nonprofit itself is based out of a small town west of Portland in the heart of Oregon's Willamette Valley, uh, Forest Grove. Most people will be like, I have no idea where that's at. So think of somewhere halfway between Portland and the Oregon coast.
And so, tell us a little bit about Dauntless's history and how it's kind of got off the ground and how it's growing now.
The nonprofit is the heart and soul of what we saw on the winery side. And the owner winemaker, Ben Martin, he was inspired by the French Foreign Legion, started up the winery. And then as 2017, 2018 rolled around, the conversation of being able to create a fund or a way to give back to those in our community as a low barrier entry way to break into whatever branch of agriculture somebody's interested in. Lots of conversations kind of revolving around that. And at the height of COVID in 2020, our tasting room doors were open, but they were limited on what we were able to do in the winery side, and started receiving some emails and social media messages, kind of really amplifying the need to have a network of veteran farmers that rolls right into our vision, needing assistance or having questions or saying, hey, I can't sell my produce. We're not having markets right now. Or I don't see any federal funding available for what I'm trying to do. Or how do I get a USDA home loan? So a lot of questions that you would see potentially other nationwide organizations that just didn't quite have a foothold in Oregon yet. So we saw a need. And during the summer of 2020, I was participating in the Rosie Network, if you've heard of that before. And we were the first online cohort. And I utilized that as an opportunity to kind of craft over 6 weeks a pitch for DVF. All of our conversation went into play. We took that to heart and started working with an attorney to just kind of guide us on what it looks like to have a 501c3. We knew we wanted to be a public nonprofit, regardless of the word foundation in our title. So in early 2021, we all got together, the founding officers and the board, and we signed the legal documents in the tasting room downtown in Forest Grove. And we sent them off. And the next day I left for a deployment. I said, well, I hope while I'm gone that we get our federal EIN. That's always the big thing that you need. And so in 2021, in the thick of us pulling out of Afghanistan and Operation Allies Welcome, what kind of kept my heart warm was knowing when I got back home to Oregon, there was a nonprofit, there was a need, and there was something on the other side where I could help lead and put that expertise right back from the field to the farm. So that's a little bit about how my involvement has transformed over the last, I don't know, like 8 years now.
So how do veterans play a role at the winery now? Do you have people volunteer and help, or is it more of people call and ask questions? How do you guys mostly see veterans getting involved with the winery part of it?
So the tasting room in downtown opened up to the club members in February of 2019. And it was like a little shop light in the corner. Ben was taking appointments. He was bringing people in there. And we didn't open to the club, outside the club, until late April that year. And then the tasting room's just kind of transformed. If you take a look on social media, you'll see some photos on there on the Dauntless Wine Company website. But it just started becoming a gathering place. If you think of many of the veteran service organizations, they have the patches up on the wall, they have memorabilia. Well, it's kind of the feeling that you get when you walk into the tasting room. And so for veterans within Northwest Oregon, it became a place they could come to and just play a game, talk to somebody, relax, not necessarily drink. We don't always, posture that culture per se. It's not like you're going into a dive bar on the base or the NCO club or the officers club and throwing back a whole bunch. It's just a little different, wine tasting, different. But other than that, for veterans coming in, we could see that it was a place that they could gather, they could fellowship, and they could have a sense of community there. And it just grew. It grew from hosting the Marine Corps birthday and making it one of the largest celebrations that we have there. Being a space where we could have different groups of veterans come in. It's a place where we held our first veteran meetup and women veterans meetup in Oregon and Southwest Washington. That was huge for us. And as far as employee status goes, boy, I was a sweat equity employee for a while. Getting paid in wine is not bad, or, the occasional tip, but I jokingly referred to it as my reserve wine weekend. I'd fly up from when I was stationed down at Travis Air Force Base in Northern California and work in the tasting room, then turn around and fly back and go right back to work. But I was also in the heart of Napa Valley down there too. So it was helpful for wine education to go through and earn my WSET there. But as post-COVID rolled around, we were able to look at what actually hiring people looked like, and just wanted to be able to have the military and veteran connection, and not make it difficult for people who were also currently serving to be able to serve there. So knowing that not only did you have the employer support of the Guard and Reserve, Department of Labor vets, recognizing Dauntless for being a veteran-friendly employer, it makes it, hey, when I come out here, it's hard, especially in the summer, but that we have additional people that kind of pick up and they want to help. It's fun, being able to go there and talk about the wine and how it connects. So each one of us that works behind the bar in the tasting room, we have a different way to connect to the story and the wine and the marketing and the branding. So anytime I'm in the tasting room, the majority of the conversation is going to be around veterans in agriculture.
What kind of wine do you guys specialize in? Like what is the best kind of type of wine for your area?
Oh, so in Oregon, especially in the Willamette Valley, the number one grape is Pinot Noir. Number two is Pinot Gris. But I think what's special about our type of wine is that it's single and double clone varietals. So when you think of Pinot Noir as a grape, there's lots of different types of that grape. And instead of Dijon or Burgundy blend being the go-to, like you may experience in the rest of the valley, we just have something a little bit different. And so if you really enjoy a Pommard Pinot Noir, you're going to end up wanting to pick Pacific Theater. You know, it's the label that we have on there, and this is where it makes it fun. If you can't remember the name of the wine, you could at least point to a picture. So we're super veteran friendly in that regard. Being able to at least pluck it from there. And then the vineyards that we will have grapes come into from what we can't grow within the valley come from veteran connected. So we want a 1 degree separation. So the Chardonnay and the Cab Franc are coming from the Columbia Gorge AVA, which is the only one that has quite literally an entire river cutting between the state. But it's the only designation where you can actually call it being one AVA, even though you have the Oregon and Washington side to it. So it's really unique.
Wow. And so I've also seen on your social media, you guys have some incredible fundraising events, if you want to call it that, but with your, you've had incredible like gift baskets with all of these beautiful wines, and that a lot of that goes towards your agricultural grant program. I think it was about a year and a half ago, our farm was awarded that, and it was just incredible for us because we were able to get some poultry processing equipment, and that was actually used equipment that came from another veteran's farm in Pennsylvania. So it not only helped us out, but it also really helped out that veteran because they're at a little bit bigger scale than us, and so they were ready to upgrade. So it was kind of a cool like 2-for-1 bonus with that equipment purchased. And we were able to be processing our turkeys. We do holiday Thanksgiving turkeys on our farm. And so that made a huge difference for us. So I'm, a little familiar with your agricultural grant program, but kind of tell us what that looks like, how you guys fundraise for it, and just how veterans kind of can get involved in that.
Yeah, those are great questions. And we're so excited when we can be able to connect with grant recipients. This year, we now get to say that we have 39 grant recipients since 2022 with over $270,000 of support, almost reaching that $300,000 level. And so our agriculture grant is a fund. It's not a traditional program in the sense where we bring somebody in, we see them in person, and we have that type of connection. So as a fund, we've had the generosity of many local individual donors be able to provide funds directly to the grant via ticket sales. They'll come in and buy a $10 ticket with the hopes of winning that gigantic ammo crate full of all those goodies and making a lot of friends. And we'll usually kick off our fundraising season the third Saturday of August with the Uncorked event in downtown Forest Grove, where all of Main Street is blocked off. The Uncorked Festival has been around for over a decade, and we've been so fortunate to be the beneficiary of that event for the last 3 years. And so that's actually happening here in just a few weeks. Our board, we were talking about that last night. We'll be so excited to have a few of our local grant recipients be able to come there and help share a little bit more from that storytelling aspect of what that grant has meant as an impact to them. Other fundraising events, if you've looked at our social media over the years, kind of coincide with where I've been stationed or where I have a network or where we have grant recipients. So everything from doing WOD and wine, so in the CrossFit community and doing a workout of the day, followed by a wine tasting, good restorative practice there. We've done those events in Colorado and in Oregon. We've done workday events at VA domicilaries up in the Denver area with one of our grant recipients from Colorado, or Navy veteran there. We've done a goat walk up in Washington. And one of the events that I'm most excited about, since I'm out here in the DMV area on the East Coast, is just driving about 3.5 hours west of here in the West Virginia's mountain area, to one of our grant recipients from 2024, a Navy veteran and his wife run the Mountain Cajun Getaway. and they utilized our grant to help fund an additional 500 taps for their maple syrup production with an evaporator. So we're getting to bring in some of the community from the garden reserve out there to show them a little bit about what the getaway is, how it's a retreat for veterans and their families, and just help propel and support their mission. And those are just a few of the examples. And the one that I love the most is if you go and look at, it was also 2023. Oh my gosh, our youngest ever donor and his parents, of course, because he couldn't drive his tractor into town to deliver this, but presented us with a check for $17,000. And he helped provide vegetables from his harvest and also help a silent auction because all he wanted to do was donate back to veterans. They held a concert and they handed us that check, and that check basically funded one of our grant recipients down in Jacksonville, Oregon, and her husband for their pollinator garden and their no-till soil production that they're doing to help reinvigorate that land in Southern Oregon's Rogue Valley, which is just incredible. And so when you think of that type of generosity, being able to match that across a federal or a state level grant, those are the stories that you can't put in there and measure with a metric, right? You measure that with heart and with community, and really tying it back into our values of having continued service and that connection directly with our community. So I would say that the Dauntless Veteran Foundation has a very high social capital within the Portland metro area. But now that we've grown to 13 states with grant recipients, every branch of service, but Space Force and Coast Guard, that's becoming more of a national reputation. And all that to say, as a result of that, I started a journey in January at Pacific University, which is 2 blocks from the tasting room, mind you, very, very hyper local, in their Master of Nonprofit Leadership program. There are a lot of different programs out there, but Pacific University's is structured to be, 12 months total. And it has an experiential program called a Project in Action. And that is really what I'm utilizing to help build a true agriculture grant program where we can bring in a cohort of veterans where it's 4 months of an on-ramp where they get the basics of what they need to have for that 0 to 2 years to help qualify for now what after 2 years. Do I go into a Resilierator? Do I check with my Farm Link? What about my Farmer Veteran Coalition chapter in my state? Do I qualify for Homegrown for Heroes? Can I go into all of these other ones? Maybe Arcadia's veteran program is one that I want to jump into with that reserve weekend. Or if I'm separating from the service, do I go into SkillBridge? Is that still a possibility? We want to help create that foundation and still be true to our mission of helping veterans translate their talent from the field to the farm. But now, with 4 years of grant recipients, we can help employ that vision of creating an interdependent network of veteran farmers. So more to follow on that. My next iteration's due in mid-August. So we'll be utilizing this most current cohort of grant recipients to talk with about their experiences so far to help kind of shape what that looks like in the future. And with all things veteran-centric, we look at that structure, we look at the mentoring, and we look at the fact that you're not alone. And it doesn't matter where you live or what branch of agriculture you're in, you have somebody that you can reach out to, which is why I'm so excited, Kate, to see what you've been doing and how you're trying to bridge that communication gap by just having that network available.
Absolutely, because there are people just doing incredible things throughout the country, and it's so exciting. And I think, depending on who the mentor is, you got to make sure that's a good fit for a veteran. And so, even if we were doing SkillBridge on our farm and we weren't a perfect fit, it's just awesome to be able to have, a connected community so that if somebody pops up in Oregon and wants to learn about wine, I know right where to send them. So it's really exciting. And I think there's a huge need for this. And I love the agriculture grant program, and I think it's a really there's not a lot of barriers to doing the application. I mean, I think you guys make it really accessible, and it's, it's not super daunting to do it, even though you guys are called Dauntless Veterans Foundation. It's an easy application, and I think part of, what we can do as well is, if anyone is interested in doing that, I'm always happy to read grant applications first before they're submitted to you guys. So we'll continue the collaboration and spreading the word about it. Do you know when your next grant cycle will open? So when people should be checking the website to know when the next round of funding goes out?
My proposal for creating the program is to have it still be announced in March timeframe. So usually we like to launch it around January to give people at least 30 days to fill it out.
Yep.
Especially like after the holidays and before it gets pretty wild with a lot of the land grant universities having their small farms conferences and really kicking off that season. So we like to try to keep on that schedule. And I think that that'll work with the proposal that we have to shift it to that focus of more programmatic experience.
Leanne, thank you so much for joining us today and for your service and for sharing more about your work with the Dauntless Veteran Foundation. For listeners who want to learn more about events at the winery, ways to get involved, or the grant, head on over to dauntlessvf.org. And if you're listening and you want to set up a farm coaching session, get the link for the VetFarm Network app, or learn more about Addie's Orchard or the VetFarm Network, just head on over to our website, addiesorchard.org. We're going to have both of these links in our show notes. I also want to invite you to our August office hours that are going to be coming up, where we'll be talking about fencing on the farm. Last month we had a great discussion about growing Christmas trees, and we hope you can make it coming up in August. So thank you so much for being here. This episode is part of the American VetFarm Network, a program of Addie's Orchard, and it's supported by the USDA NIFA 2501 grant program. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.